I think my sister-in-law is under the impression that our only identity as humans is aunt. She literally thinks we should be with her kids all the time and doesn't understand that we have our own lives and responsibilities. They live 3 hours away, but if we don't go to her house every weekend, she starts posting things like, "Aunts and uncles can be deadbeats too," on Facebook. If there's a holiday or birthday and we have to work, she gets unreasonably upset and ignores us for months. Additionally, no one likes going there because she watches your every move. If you use your phone too much or watch TV, she makes nasty comments about you not caring or asks why you even came if you're just going to ignore her kids. Everything is judged like that. The gifts we give are always carefully scrutinized and judged by her. She even told me once that I'm too awkward with the kids and need to stop before they think I don't like them. I'm autistic and I'm like this with everyone. I can't help it. Another big issue is that when we visit, she'll ask us to watch the youngest child so she can go to the store, then disappear for the entire day. She doesn't care at all if you have other obligations. I've begged her in tears to hurry up because I had something extremely important to do, but she would still be gone until dark. One time I stayed a week and had to leave, and she had the kids begging me to stay in tears. When I left, because I have work, she messaged my mom and criticized me, calling me selfish and narcissistic. Personally, I don't think she has the right to judge because she's never had a job. She worked at a dollar store for only 3 days and quit, and besides that, she's never worked. She doesn't know what it means to be an adult and provide for yourself. She doesn't understand obligations. She does everything on her own time. It has reached a point where I feel sick and extremely upset for a week before I have to visit. I have extreme anxiety about visiting and have gone from visiting weekly when the first child was born to a few times a year. Seeing my nieces and nephews has become a highly stressful situation that feels more like navigating a minefield than spending time with family. It's miserable. I've even dreamt of going no contact, as awful as that sounds. Well, she did it again. She left without saying anything and then messaged me to take care of the kids until she gets back from Tractor Supply. Tractor Supply is 2 hours away, so I'm looking at 5 hours of being stuck when I had something planned for today. My town is having its annual fair, and I was really looking forward to going. Once she's back, which will take at least 5 hours, I'll have a 3-hour drive home, so there's no way I'll make it. I'm almost in tears because I'm so disappointed. I know it's immature, but I'm tired of this. I messaged her that I'm a person, not just an aunt, and she needs to realize that I have a life. Now she's rushing back so I can get the frick out of her house. I feel like I'm going to have a stroke. I'm so upset. I just don't understand any of this. Am I the idiot? Edit. I'm home. Thank you to everyone who gave good advice. As for the people criticizing me, yes, I have some issues. I grew up with an extremely explosive brother, which made me overly adaptable. I understand I have problems, but that doesn't make me pathetic. I struggle with a lot of mental illnesses and don't really understand social norms, so I'm easily taken advantage of. And I don't understand people acting like cutting them off is easy when it means I won't get to see my nieces and nephews. I am going no contact, but it's not an easy decision for me. None of this is easy for me. I'm doing my best, but it's not easy being someone with my disabilities and disorders trying to function in a dysfunctional family. I try. I'm not well suited for this world, but I'm doing my best to cope. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1, not the idiot. You must love your niece, nephews, else you wouldn't care about seeing them. She is a toxic person, though. She really has no right to expect anything out of you. It's unreasonable, and she may be counting on you believing this is just another social norm you don't understand to get free childcare. The social norm would be 3 to 4 times a year, mostly on special occasions. It's not the norm to expect an aunt or uncle to watch the children, though. It's not wrong, it's just not the norm. Comment 2. Not the idiot. Stop going over there and stop entertaining her delusions. She does not love you nor respect you. She is a deadbeat if she treats other people like this. Don't give in to her manipulation. Now for the update. Hey everyone, it's been a hectic few days since my last post. I just wanted to give you all an update on what's been going on. First off, I want to thank you all for your support and advice. It really means a lot to me, especially during this difficult time. So here's what happened. After I got home from my sister-in-law's place, I was still pretty upset about the whole situation. I couldn't stop thinking about how unfair it was that she kept taking advantage of me and my time. I decided to take some of your advice and set some clear boundaries with her. The next day, I called her up and told her that I needed to talk to her about something important. She seemed annoyed, but agreed to meet me for coffee. When we sat down, I explained to her that I felt like she was taking advantage of me and that I needed her to respect my time and my life outside of being an aunt. At first, she got defensive and started accusing me of not caring about her kids. But I stood my ground and told her that I loved my nieces and nephews, but that didn't mean I could drop everything whenever she needed me to. I reminded her that I had my own life and responsibilities, and that she needed to respect that. To my surprise, she actually seemed to listen. She apologized for taking me for granted and promised to be more considerate in the future. I was relieved and thought that maybe things would finally start to get better. But then, a couple of days later, I got a call from my mom. She told me that my sister-in-law had been talking to her and my other siblings, telling them that I was being selfish and that I didn't care about family. She even went so far as to say that I was a bad influence on her kids and that she didn't want me around them anymore. I was shocked and hurt. I couldn't believe that she would go behind my back like that and try to turn my own family against me. I called her up and confronted her about it, but she just started yelling at me and telling me that I was the one with the problem. I hung up on her and spent the rest of the day crying. I felt like I was losing my mind. I had tried so hard to be a good aunt and to be there for her kids, but nothing I did was ever good enough for her. That's when I realized that this wasn't just about her taking advantage of me. There were deeper issues at play here, ones that went back to our childhood. Growing up, my sister-in-law was always the favorite. She was the pretty one, the popular one, the one who could do no wrong in our parents' eyes. I, on the other hand, was the awkward one, the one who struggled to fit in and make friends. Even as adults, those dynamics never really went away. My sister-in-law always seemed to get what she wanted, while I was left feeling like I was never good enough. And now, with her kids, it was like history was repeating itself. I realized that I had been letting her treat me this way for far too long. I had been so afraid of losing my relationship with my nieces and nephews that I had been willing to put up with her abuse and manipulation. But I knew that I couldn't keep living like this, so I made the hard decision to go no contact with her. I knew it would be difficult and that I would miss my nieces and nephews terribly. But I also knew that I needed to put my own mental health and well-being first. It's been a few days since I made that decision, and it hasn't been easy. I've had moments where I've doubted myself and wondered if I'm doing the right thing. But deep down, I know that this is what I need to do for myself. I'm not sure what the future holds, but I know that I need to focus on taking care of myself right now. I'm going to keep going to therapy and working on setting healthy boundaries in all of my relationships. Thank you all again for your support and advice. It means more to me than you know. Am I the idiot for taking back my parking spot from my neighbor's daughter who assumed it was hers? Parking is a nightmare in my neighborhood. If you get home after 8 o'clock or so, you're all but guaranteed to be stuck looking for a spot in an industrial area about half a mile away from my apartment that's fairly desolate at night. My building has a lot with assigned spaces, but it's not big enough to accommodate all of the residents, so there's a long wait list. I don't have a car, but my girlfriend Jen is a bartender, and she would be driving back to my place after late shifts pretty frequently, so I signed up for the wait list as soon as I closed on my apartment. One of my neighbors, Jake, passed away a little over a year later, and I got his parking space. Jake's daughter, Claire, inherited his apartment and moved in a few months later, and she incorrectly assumed that her father's old parking space came with the apartment. The building's superintendent told Claire that she needed to sign up for the waitlist to get a parking space after I found her car in my spot a couple of times. I figured that was the end of it, but I wouldn't be posting here if that was the case. I got home around 9:30 one night a few weeks later, and Claire's car was in my spot again. Jen was coming by around 1 o'clock, and it was pouring rain, so I knocked on Claire's door to let her know she had to move her car. She told me she knew she shouldn't have taken my spot, but she had an awful day at work, and her 3-year-old son was having a tantrum when she picked him up. Then the rain got bad right as she was getting home. She said she was completely overwhelmed and had noticed that my space was usually empty, so she figured it wouldn't hurt anyone if she took it for one night. She asked me if she could move her car in the morning because her kid was already asleep. I told her I was sorry she was having a bad day, but my girlfriend was coming by in a few hours and she needed the spot. Claire asked if I was really going to make her wake her son up, then walk home through a sketchy neighborhood in the rain with him. I didn't appreciate the guilt trip, so I just told her that I would be calling a tow truck if her car was still in my spot in an hour, and went back to my apartment. Her car was gone when Jen got back, and it was still pouring. Anyway, this was a few weeks ago, and I've caught shoot from a few of my neighbors over it. I guess Claire is telling people what a heartless monster I am. I generally keep to myself, so I'm not losing any sleep over the neighbors having a negative opinion about me, but I'm curious enough about what the internet thinks to post this. So yeah, am I the jerk? ETA, because I've already addressed this a bunch of times. Yes, the parking situation sucks, but there's nothing the building management/co-op board can do about it. The complex was built in the 1930s in a very densely populated area with ridiculous real estate prices. It's also between two fairly busy train stations, so there's competition with commuters for street parking. We're surrounded by other apartment buildings, so there's no land to build more parking on, and I don't even want to think about how much my maintenance would go up if they tried to expand the existing lot vertically. On the other hand, the neighborhood is very walkable, has great public transportation access, and is close to a really nice bike trail. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. She had the opportunity to contact you. Her bad day is not your life issue. Her bad manners and entitlement are, it's your allocated spot, not hers. How does she know that your girlfriend isn't coming home with a heavy object, etc.? If she had asked, maybe it would be different. Comment 2, she could have parked in any open space. The fact that she keeps specifically parking in yours means she still feels some ownership of it. If you'd said yes, she would make it a habit. She already does, even though you've said no many times. Not the idiot now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for reading my last post and for all the feedback. It's been a rough couple of weeks since then, and I wanted to give you all an update on what's been going on. So, a few days after my last post, I ran into Claire in the hallway. She apologized for taking my parking spot and said she understood why I was upset. I appreciated the apology and thought that would be the end of it. But then, things took a turn. Last week, I came home from work to find my parking spot empty. I was confused because Jen wasn't supposed to be coming over that night. I went up to my apartment and found a note from Claire slipped under my door. It said that she had an emergency and had to take my spot, but she promised to move her car first thing in the morning. I was annoyed, but I figured I could let it slide for one night. But then, the next morning, her car was still there. I knocked on her door, but there was no answer. I left a note on her car telling her to move it ASAP. When I got home from work that evening, her car was gone, but there was another note from her. This time, she said that her son had gotten sick and she had to take him to the hospital. She apologized again and said she would make it up to me. I felt bad for her, but I was also starting to get frustrated. It seemed like every time I turned around, she was taking my spot and leaving me notes with excuses. A few days later, I came home to find her car in my spot again. This time, there was no note. I was about to call the tow truck when I saw Claire walking up the street with her son. I confronted her and asked why she kept taking my spot. She broke down in tears and told me that she had lost her job and was struggling to make ends meet. She said she had been taking my spot because she couldn't afford to pay for parking and didn't want to wake her son up in the middle of the night to move the car. I felt terrible for her, but I also knew that I couldn't keep letting her take my spot. I told her that I understood her situation, but that she needed to find another solution. I offered to help her look for a cheaper parking spot nearby, but she said she didn't want my help. A few days later, I found out from another neighbor that Claire had been telling people that I was harassing her and threatening to call child services on her. I was shocked and hurt that she would say something like that, especially after I had tried to be understanding and helpful. I decided to confront her about it, but when I knocked on her door, there was no answer. I found out later that she had moved out in the middle of the night, leaving no forwarding address. I felt terrible about the whole situation. I knew that Claire was going through a tough time, but I also felt like she had taken advantage of my kindness and then turned around and tried to make me look like the bad guy. Looking back, I realized that I made a mistake by not setting clearer boundaries with Claire from the beginning. I should have been more firm about her not taking my spot, even if she was going through a tough time. I also should have been more proactive about finding a solution that worked for both of us, instead of just letting things escalate. In the end, the whole situation left a bad taste in my mouth. I felt like I had tried to do the right thing, but it had backfired on me. I know that parking is a contentious issue in our building, but I never thought it would lead to something like this. I guess the lesson I learned is that sometimes, even when you're trying to be kind and understanding, you have to set clear boundaries and stick to them. Otherwise, you risk being taken advantage of and having your kindness used against you. Anyway, that's the update. Thanks for reading, and I appreciate any thoughts or feedback you might have. Am I the idiot for kicking out my daughter after she tried to warn me about my scammer boyfriend? My 50-year-old daughter did not even wait a week post my boyfriend, who is 55 years old, moving out to run to my mother and spill all the dirty laundry. I do not know if it is for some sort of desire to involve my elderly mother, who is 71 years old, in my personal drama, or for revenge on me. Her own father, who is 51 years old, blindsided me with a divorce 6 years ago due to stresses caused by him being a long-haul truck driver and stresses from raising 5 kids together, who are now 19 years old, 16 years old, 14 years old, 8 years old, and 7 years old. He was a gambling addict whose behavior got him fired for flying into rages with his manager, oversleeping, and arriving late. His gambling left us penniless. My mom and my daughter saw how much that divorce tore me apart. Yet they seemed to resent me for dating after the divorce and always made me feel they expected me to fail. After working in catering, I wanted to start my own company and became very interested in business. Therefore, I was happy when I met my now ex-boyfriend, who claimed to share those interests, and said he was a successful investor who had also gone to law school. I was hurt to hear my family tell me he was too good to be true when he was taking me out to great restaurants and buying me luxury gifts. They first believed he was married. Then they said they did not believe that at his age, having never been married and childless, that he was okay with stepkids. It made me not want to talk to them about him. He later moved into my apartment, claiming to want to buy a house with me, and we started having problems. He lied about going to law school. However, he did not misrepresent the fact that he's never been married or had any kids. He had worked in business, but he admitted that it was as an assistant at an investment company, not as an investor. He later insisted he helped me get set up with web designers and marketing, and flipped out when I found out the checks I wrote that drained my savings were going to businesses in his name. He'd pick fights with me that ended in him screaming, and he'd argue with the kids, which was my last straw. I ended up breaking up with him and kicking him out, and I'm hoping he'll stay away. I tried to set the tone by telling family and friends it was just us not being a good match, that I respect him and he's a good, successful guy. But my daughter goes and tells my mom all the humiliating details when I begged her not to tell anybody about the details of this relationship. My mom then says she's glad this part of my life is over and that she tried to warn me. I told you so. I'm furious that my daughter, who's a student working part-time that I let still live with me as an adult out of love, decided to betray me like that, humiliating me. I told her to leave. She gets furious and says that she was entitled to say that and more, because she caught him looking at her work documents that had her financial information on it, and he lived in her home too. Am I the idiot? I don't want to kick her out permanently, but need to be away from her for a while and want her to apologize for bringing on the "I told you so" and kicking me at my lowest. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. TA Majorly. It's not your daughter's fault that you allowed yourself to get scammed. The way this reads is that your family tried to help you not get into this situation. You put on all the blinders and decided not to listen because you wanted a man in your life. Then, when what they said would happen happened, you pitch a baby fit because they called it. Get some therapy and give your kids a better role model than what you're providing them right now. Comment 2. You're the idiot. You're 50. How the frick are you this naive? Rich dude that needs to move with you and your 5 children? You gave him money without seeing a document or consulting a lawyer? WUFT. You have 5 children. You put them in danger by moving a stranger and risking their safety both physically and financially. You gave him your children's personal information he can use to commit credit card fraud and get them into debt. Now, for the update. Thank you for all the comments and support on my last post. It's been a challenging couple of weeks since I kicked my daughter out. but I appreciate the advice and perspective you've all shared. After our big fight, my daughter packed a bag and went to stay with my mom. I was still fuming and hurt by her betrayal, but a part of me felt guilty for reacting so harshly. I tried to distract myself by focusing on my catering business, but my heart wasn't in it. I kept replaying our argument in my head, wondering if I could have handled things differently. A few days later, my mom called me. She said that while she understood my anger, she thought I was being too hard on my daughter. She reminded me that my daughter had been through a lot with the divorce and had always been protective of me. My mom also dropped in news. Apparently, my ex-boyfriend had been contacting my daughter, trying to get information about me and my business. My daughter had been trying to protect me by not telling me, but the stress of keeping it a secret had taken a toll on her. I was stunned. I had no idea my ex was still trying to manipulate me through my family. Suddenly, my daughter's actions made more sense. She wasn't trying to humiliate me. She was trying to warn me and seek help from my mom. I felt awful for not giving her a chance to explain herself. I asked my mom to put my daughter on the phone. When she answered, I could hear the tension in her voice. I took a deep breath and apologized for overreacting. I told her that I understood why she went to my mom and that I was sorry for not listening to her concerns about my ex. My daughter broke down crying, saying she never meant to hurt me and that she was just scared for me. We talked for a long time, and I realized that I had been so focused on my own pain that I hadn't considered how my relationships affected my kids. They had been through so much with the divorce and had valid reasons for being wary of my ex. I promised my daughter that I would be more open with her in the future and that we would face any challenges together as a family. The next day, my daughter came home, and we had a long heart-to-heart. She filled me in on the extent of my ex's harassment and showed me the messages he had been sending her. I was horrified and angry, but I was also grateful that my daughter had my back. We agreed to take legal action against my ex and to be more honest with each other moving forward. In the weeks since, my daughter and I have been working on rebuilding our relationship. We've had some tough conversations about trust and boundaries, but we're both committed to making things better. I've also been more open with my mom about what's going on in my life, and she's been a great source of support. Looking back, I realized that my daughter's actions were a wake-up call for me. I had been so focused on my own desires and fears that I had lost sight of what really mattered, my family. I'm not proud of how I reacted, but I'm grateful for the opportunity to grow and strengthen my relationships with the people who love me most. Thank you again for all your support and advice. It means the world to me. If you liked this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.